What's up, programmer? In this video, I'm going to explain else-if statements in C++. So, what are else-if statements? Else-if statements are conditional statements just like if statements and else statements, except that it will perform an action if the main if statement turns out to be false and if the code meets the conditions. Else-if statements come after an if statement or other else-if statements, but they cannot come after an else statement. Now, I am going to show you how to create an else-if statement in C++. To create an else-if statement, you need to have an if statement first. The rule for else-if statements is that they can only come after an if statement and before else statements. You can't have an else-if statement by itself because that will cause an error in your code. To type the else-if statement, all you have to do is type else-if and the curly brackets. Sometimes you will end your conditions with an else statement, but you can also end it with an else if statement. Now, how the else if statement is going to work is that if the code doesn't go into the if statement, then it will try the else if statements if the conditions are met. If the conditions are not met, then the code will just skip over the else if statement and it will try other else if statements if you have them in your code. If you don't have other else if statements, then it will go to the else statement if you have that in your code as well. For example, I have an integer variable named number and it is set to 15. I created an if statement to check if the number variable is equal to 20. Then after that, I have the else if statement where it checks if the number variable is set to 15. Since the variable is set to 15, the program will not process the if statement because it doesn't match the condition, and instead it will process the else if statement because it matches the condition. When we run the program, you can see that the code in the else if statement was processed. Comment down below if you found this video helpful so far or you have any questions you want to ask. Now I will show you another example. I have added another else if statement where it checks if the variable is equal to 10 and an else statement for all the other values the variable could be. Then I changed the number variable so that it is set to 7 because the variable is set to 7 and it does not seem to match the if statement or the else if statements. When we run the program, the code in the else statement was processed because the variable did not match any of the conditions in the if statement or the else if statement. Now, if we set the variable to be equal to 20, when we run the program, the code in the if statement was processed and none of the else if statement or the else statement was processed. If we change the variable again so that it is equal to 10, when we run the program, you can see that the second else if statement is the one that was processed by the program because the variable matches the condition in that else if statement. Again, else if statements will be placed after an if statement and before else statements. It cannot be by itself. It needs at least an if statement before it. Depending on your program, you may not have to have an else statement after it. Additionally, if you are going to be using else if statements in your program, you want to make sure that you also understand how to use else statements because they will come after else if statements. I will demonstrate else statements in this video, so you want to go watch that video next. Anyways, this is Easy Syntax showing you programming made easy. Thank you for watching.